First thing I want to do here today is once again tell all of you how proud I am of you. How very proud I am of you. The manner in which you put this together, the manner in which you have conducted yourself, speaks to the class and style of each and every one of you. And that has always been our modus operandi in talent development, to go with class and with style. I've used this often, and I thought of what I might say here today. And I've discarded a great deal of my thoughts, but for one. Some of you have heard it before, but I think it's most appropriate today. Fleecy flocks and black complexions, they cannot alter nature's claim. Skins may differ, but affection, it dwells in the hearts of black and white the same, and red and brown and yellow. And if I was so tall that I could touch the sky or grasp the ocean in but a single span, I must be measured by my heart and my soul, for these are truly the standards of a man.
Hello everyone, my name's Idris Lanre Ajakai. In 1992, a perfect storm of events was brewing. First, a misquoted, sanitized quote by Malcolm X led to tensions running high amidst a myriad of other issues going on. At the time, I was only a sophomore, Vice President of Uhuru Sasa, when over 200 students organized and decided they had had enough. Over 14 points were articulated at this time in the BSLG movement, which, until now, the story has gone untold. What you're going to hear is a story from the people that were there, who lived it, who were students at the time, and their reflections today of the movement, the BSLG movement. A voice was heard.
Good job, Not too young. Let's get it started.
I want to remind everybody in here, this is Malcolm X Hall. Well, I'm glad you're here to listen, because you haven't done anything for the last 10 years. You all right? We know what's up. Save your promises. We on action.
I don't need to be called a nigger to know that that is what I am on this campus.
Say that the Malcolm X misquote on the library is another case of URI shooting itself in the foot. It's the same old story. When is it gonna come to us? That's what I want to know. I've been here for 8 years and I haven't seen a damn cent.
The University of Rhode Island failed to fulfill my needs.
I don't care who you people are. Don't I care what you stand for. You stand for saying I am, yo, I'm down to motherfuckers. Freedom now, Uhuru Sasa. That's the name of our house.
The problems on this campus, it's not a black problem. It's not a white problem. It's a campus administration problem. We as students gotta understand that in order for things to change, we have to affect change.
God-given human rights. It's not about civil rights. It's about the human rights that we are all deserved of. You're not getting them here. And they're talking about everybody in this room. Everybody. We got all sorts of programs, issues, resources, funds. But how about the funding for the people here? The people that are in this room. They pay the tuition, they take out the loans. Give them some back. Why is the university digging in their pockets? Everybody in this room is going to empty out their pockets for this university. Why does the university dig in their pockets and give something back to the people here?
Well, I believe that there are a lot of racist elements on this this campus, which is not much different from the mainstream community, which is not much different from the world community, and that our objective is to try to change it, bring about an environment where people can live peacefully and that they can learn in an atmosphere which will allow them to grow to their potential.
So what was something that you could do to help settle this?
Well, the first thing we need to do is sit down and listen to them. They have some concerns that they want to voice, and we're ready to listen to those concerns. We're ready to meet with them and try to resolve whatever issues that are present. The report came to me that there was a takeover at Taft Hall. President Carruthers at the time was at a conference somewhere, I think maybe in Louisiana or something of that nature. So I came over and talked to some of the personnel who were working with talent development students. A lot of these are talent development students. And to find out what was going on. The operating strategy at that period of time for the state, because of its experience with the anti-war movement, was that there would be no longer any opportunity to take over buildings at the University of Rhode Island, and that the state police were to be called and the individuals taken into custody if necessary to prevent such things occurring. So I realized at the time that it was going to be a very significant and emotional event. I called President Carruthers and told him that was going on, and he was away, as I pointed out, and told him I'll take care of it, and when he came back we would talk about it. He insisted that he was coming back right then and there. As soon as he can get the earliest plane out, he would get on that plane and come back, because he thought that this was the place that he should be if his students had trouble. And that's what he did. I was most impressed by this.
I got a call from Dr. McCrae, who was the Vice President for Student Affairs at that time, and he said to me, the state police want to take them out of the building. And I said, no state police in the building. I was in New Orleans at the time. And I said, I'll get back there and we'll talk about how we're going to do with this. So I had to catch a plane. I didn't have a reservation, so I had to catch a plane. I went to Chicago, and then I came back to Providence. And when I got on the plane in New Orleans, I started writing problem definitions. And so the first definition I wrote was how to get the kids out of the building. And I kept writing it and writing it and rewriting it and writing it. And by the time I got to Providence, my problem definition was how to use the moral energy in that building to transform the campus. And then how to make the leadership of that group into heroes.
We're gonna go back to that day, November 10th, 1992.
Our voice was heard. That was our phrase. November 10th, 1992, a voice was heard.
Could you describe what happened that day?
Let's start before. We were fasting. We didn't eat. So we were hungry. We were thirsty. A lot of people don't know that. So it was spiritual. What happened on that day was very spiritual. We had a saying. One of our counselors, Frank Folia, he had a mirror in his office, and every person had to, we kind of to look in that mirror and say, come correct and check yourself. Come correct and check yourself basically means that the person that you see in front of you, the words that you say, it's got to be from your spirit. It's got to be from your heart. So those were things that were happening in the background that got us to that point. We had to find our voice because we were suppressed for so long. Before leading up, not eating, not drinking, really centered. Then action. We walked down from upstairs, we rehearsed, we made sure everyone knew their part, the order, everything was lined up to precision. Everyone had their role. It just so happened that I had that first responsibility.
It felt scary because I'm like, oh my God, my parents are gonna kill me. This is not what they sent me to school for. So feeling like doing the speeches and during the time of the takeover, it felt scary. It also felt empowering because we had support.
You know, at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you're like, wait, we're still here. You start to think about what will happen when the sun comes up. What will we be met with? Will we be received well? Will our demands be received well? But we thought about those things. However, it didn't deter us. We were committed. And we believe that the greater good for the community, for the students like yourself who were going to come after us, we knew it was worth it because we wanted to make the university a better, stronger, more supportive, representative institution for students of color.
I'm up here today to talk about the Multicultural Student Center, which is uninhabitable and unsafe. The Black Student Leadership Group officially closed this house this morning at 9:30 a.m. That house is condemned. It is now non-existent. This is our house right now.
We went up to the Sasa house and we condemned it. You know, we ended up getting that. You know that crime tape that you get on police things. We put the whole thing on the door. We made sure no one could go on the porch. You know, we crime taped the whole building because it was a crime that they was still having us utilize that space with all that bad blood. And when I'm saying bad blood, I'm talking about, man, the paint, the lead, the boiler didn't work. You had to see this thing, man. It was atrocious.
I walked into the house and the floor started to streak. And when they were creaking, I figured, I'm gonna fall through here. I mean, it was atrocious, as a matter of fact.
It was asbestos. The floors were falling down. So the only reason why there's a multicultural center on campus right now was because of what we did that particular day. And again, we knew we wouldn't see the multicultural center, but we knew that we couldn't continue to go into that dump. So they condemned it.
And so they went to Frank Caprio on the Board of Governors and sought his help. That is, the students did. And he said, we will help you. And I think Carruthers talked to him about Yahara Sasa and that, you know, he didn't think it was usable for the purpose in which they wanted to. I said, we'll build you a new one. So what he did, he took my operation. I was in student affairs. He tore down one of the houses. We went and hired a so-called minority architect. Students worked with the university in setting it up. And that's, the rest is history.
My alma mater was books, a good library. I could spend the rest of my life just reading, just satisfying my curiosity. Doesn't that sound scholarly? But you don't understand behind that, Malcolm X was saying, if I didn't have to battle the white man every day, I could do that. So you see how the message changes? You're getting a message of tranquility, education. You should be like him, you should think like that. But now, if I dug deeper and really understood what he was saying and why he was saying that, now all of a sudden that cultural pride that you were talking about earlier, like now that starts coming up. Like, wait a minute, he was going through a lot of stuff. And you know what? I go through that too.
When we did the carvings on the library, it's important to me to have a white man and a black man in there. So we had Thomas Jefferson on one side and Malcolm X on the other. Both quotes were about libraries.
The quote, one was sanitized and made palatable. There were some students that didn't even know the entire quote. But when they did find out what the entirety of the quote was, were taken back. It just coincided with a bunch of other things that were going on campus at that time.
I believe the incoming class is somewhere in the range of 20 and 22% students of color. I can't give you a number on how many students know the quote, but I can say not enough. I can say that because even as myself, as a direct beneficiary who came only 9 or so years later after to take over, I didn't know. I'm not sure that there's much information or of an emphasis put on what happened in '92. Every now and then you'll hear about something, there'll be a celebratory moment, but on a larger scale, I don't think that information is taught as much as it should be. So
I look at that quote as it wasn't a coincidence. I believe nothing in life is a coincidence. I believe that that quote was meant to be there, the way that it was written. And I believe that that quote being the match that helped to light the spirit of what happened on November 10th. Because without that quote, there's a series of events that probably might not have happened. You see, we were supporting Asian Student American Association, Latin Student Association, Native American Student Association, Blacks, you know what I mean? So we were coming together as different tentacles, all feeling similar feelings at the university at the same time. So those 14 points came from unique experiences from different groups, us observing things that were happening on campus that just weren't right. Why isn't African American Studies a major? Why don't we have the adequate support on campus? You're taking our money, we're coming here to get an education, but yet we don't have the resources in order to be successful.
It's not just the articles. Everyone who was in that building had their own issues with this institution on why they wanted to participate. It wasn't just one thing. We was just done with the nonsense, period. And this is what we had to do to get the message across, point blank and simple. They might not have liked it, but they needed to deal with it. And we was blessed with the right president at the right time in Robert Crothers, real talk. Because you gotta make sure that you have people that can sit at the table that's willing to take your issues and take it seriously and then try to do everything in their power to fix it.
I sat down with a group of students and we just started to talk about the list of demands or requests or whatever. We kind of played around with what they were, but they called them their demands, and we treated them that. We looked, some of those things were easy, and we could do those, and some were tougher. The whole issue of naming this building as Malcolm X Hall, I had to say no to that because that's a state decision. Naming buildings is a legislative decision, so it has to go through the Board of Governors and it has to go to the legislature. I don't have the power to change the name of a building, but I was willing to go through the process with them to talk about that. So it was a good conversation. I think people were generally respectful of each other. There were some really good leaders that came out of that group.
And I could empathize with what their problems were and what the obstacles that they had and how important it was for the administration to give them their full cooperation. Otherwise, the power systems in both the state and the federal government would come down on them, so they had to be protected, even if they didn't know we were protecting them. That was my first reaction to it. And as Carruthers said, since these students are trying to resolve an ongoing problem with the university, we're going to support them because we want to solve the same problems that they are facing.
Be authentic. When something is not right, make sure you find your tribe. Whether it's a mentor that you trust, whether it's your peers, come together and talk about it. Don't keep it to yourself. That does nothing good for you. When you experience microaggressions, when you experience something that you know is not right for yourself, let it be known.
The power of voice and student voice is critical. If you don't use your voice to evoke change, who will? If we, as students, many, many moons ago, didn't use our voices, create the 14-point plan and advocate for it, many of the changes that people enjoy today wouldn't have happened. So as you're going about your day, if you see something that's not right, think to yourself, if not me, then who?
It's your right as a student. You're paying for your education. You should be able to learn the way you need to learn in order to get the information and be successful. And if you feel like there's discrepancies or discrimination within the campus or, the administration, speak up.
Think about the future generation. Don't ignore it because it won't help you today, right? You see it happening and be like, well, they're not gonna change it, but say something.
You've got to me, have uncomfortable conversations about, racial tension that some people think don't exist while you're in school. And, it definitely is prevalent on campus. So I think just have a voice, and speak on situations that you feel are not right.
Speak out. Do not tolerate being spit on. Do not tolerate being walked on. Do not tolerate making people feel like you don't matter because you do. That's what's important here, man. You have a voice.
And so students need to understand the value and the power in their voice and not be afraid to exercise that power as a means to better the community.
I think that the BSLG movement just changed the game altogether and allowed for us as people of color to recognize what we can do here, the impact that we can have here, and again, how to pay it forward.
Where are we now? When I look back decades later, I can't help but to be incredibly proud of what we've achieved. Across 14 points, a majority of them were realized. Specifically, I, as a sophomore, fighting for African American Studies to be a major and the Minority Cultural Center to be on the middle of campus, to see both of those things today at the University of Rhode Island makes me proud. Personally, I wouldn't have known that what I fought for and advocated for on stage at the time, my youngest brother, who we're generations removed, would actually work in the Minority Cultural Center and take classes in African American Studies. So where we're at now is we've achieved. We've been successful. We advocated.
Proud of what we have done with issues of race and gender during that period of time. We more than tripled our enrollment of people of color during here, and we went through some growing pains with that, but I think we made some real progress.
And we still got a lot of work to go. We're not there yet. We're not there, we ain't even close. You know what I'm saying? Because there's still a lot of issues. When you do have staff members on this campus that has been here, but they've been having some issues still within their departments. You still don't have enough faculty in the classroom. I still got students coming to me, telling me that they don't feel like, faculty is taking them serious and things like that. But think about that. Students are now coming to me. Think about back then, because we had to take over the building, we had nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? So now those students now have somewhere to go where if they have some issues or some concerns, they have people that they can go to that look like them. So that has changed.
It's impactful. It doesn't have to be today, 3 years later, but there's something going on. These themes don't just stop. These same themes happen, but it's left up to people to become the voice for the next generation.
That was one of the most powerful stance that us as minorities could have taken on the campus at that time. Still being talked about to this day, and it's still something that I will always cherish and be proud of. You know, there's a lot of things that I've stood up for in my life, and that was the first one, the main one, the biggest one. And it wasn't just for me, it was for everybody that was on campus and all the minorities that followed us.
Since then, we do see more people of color, but we really still need to grow our faculty of color. We still need to grow some of our other professional positions of color here at the university. So it's always ongoing. It's an ongoing sort of struggle to have equitable representation in the classroom, outside of the classroom, that students have folks that they can sort of envision themselves in their shoes, right? We need inspiration.
The BSLG movement and other movements on this campus were successful. And what students have today, even though they may not figure it as being something sizable, you wouldn't have it without 71 and 92 and 98 and other movements after that. But I think students today don't take stuff for granted. Exercise your voice, find your voices, right? Unify your voices, come together as students of color, as a diverse population, and realize what power you really have within your individual and unified voices.
You all heard of By Any Means Necessary? University of Rhode Island is determining what means will be necessary for the black student leadership group.